Hello and welcome to the Masterclass on Forgiveness with me, Ryan Branch. Thank you so much for joining with me today on this video series, and I want to give you an opportunity to thank yourself for showing up today and giving yourself time to be with this very, very powerful tool of forgiveness as not only a way of transforming judgments into a more truthful way to experience life, but also a way of being in harmony with life. Forgiveness really is harmony. Forgiveness is a form of love, and love and life are synonymous. When we're living at the highest level, we are living from and as love. So forgiveness is really the opportunity to be love in all moments and be loving in all moments, which allows us to become what it is that we were destined to be, because love is the essence of our being, whether we know it in moments when we forget it. But the truth is that when you look into the eyes of a baby child, you'll always see love, and you are still that child that was born the moment that you came out the womb. Nothing has changed other than the judgments that you've held against yourself, which are not true, which we are now going to give you an opportunity to forgive and let go of. So before we dive into this video and this class, what I would like to ask you to do is to just give yourself a moment to just slow down and take a couple of slow, deep breaths, because the ability to forgive is a love-centered, heart-centered act. It doesn't come from the head, it comes from the heart. And what that means is that in order for us to be able to activate true self-forgiveness, we need to be coming from a heart-centered place. And most of the time when we're busy throughout the day, it can be really difficult to be heart-centered when we're up against the challenges of life and we want to have to figure things out and answer questions and delegate and negotiate and all of these busy mind-based aspects of life. So just now, let's give us a couple of minutes to just slow down, some deep breathing and a small meditation before we begin. Okay, so allow yourself to sit down, either on a sofa, on a chair, on a cushion, whatever makes sense, and just close your eyes gently. And allow yourself to take a slow, deep breath into the belly, allowing the belly to expand like a balloon to the count of 6 or 7. So hold and let go to the count of 7 or 8. And let's do 4 more of those. Into the nose, into the belly for a count of 6 or 7. Hold. Now to a count of 7 or 8. Now keep going with this. Into the nose, into the belly. Count of 6 or 7. Hold, and then count of 8 on the exhalation. And as you do this, just notice any areas of tension that might be in the body. Any tension in the jaw, in the shoulders, tension in the stomach, in the back, in the neck. And just let that begin to relax as you breathe deeply into the belly and allow the breath to extend outwards into each of the areas of tension. Softening, relaxing, letting go. And with your next inhale, allow the belly to fill and allow the chest to rise gently, and hold for a couple of seconds as you bring your attention into the heart space, and then let go. And with the next inhale, I want you to really center the attention on the heart, sending the breath nice and low, and then filling up the chest nearer to the 7th second. hold. And just be gentle with that. And allow the breath to escape slowly. Bring your awareness to your heart now. Allow the breath to just take on a normal rhythm. And just notice the beating of the heart. Notice how the heart has been beating all day, giving life to you, for you, without you having to do anything. Pumping blood around the body, supporting life. Notice that the energy of the heart, the very energy that gives it life, is the same energy that is giving my heart life. It's beating my heart. What's beating mine is beating yours. And we're going to set a small intention that we're going to allow ourselves to open up to forgiveness today in a small way, and over time develop the practice of self-forgiveness into a very normal aspect of our daily life as we begin to forgive and forgive and forgive all of the judgments that we've ever held against ourselves and others. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back. So you may notice that you feel slightly different, and maybe a tingling in the palms of the hands or in the feet. You may notice a softening of the body, and this is really the place where we want to be. This is what it feels like to be more heart-centered, just in case you're unaware of what that's like. It's a softening, it's a more relaxed place. It's listening to the body and listening to the heart, and just being with the essence of our humanity, the timeless essence of our humanity, and the part of us that is equal. So self-forgiveness is the act of noticing judgments that arise in the mind about ourselves, but also about other people, which I'll explain a little bit more, and capturing those judgments and then bringing a energy of forgiveness to the judgments to release the judgments, so that you can liberate yourself from the idea that you are something that you are not. Because a judgment says, I am this. So I am lazy, or I am a procrastinator, or I am poor, or I am unable to take care of my finances, or I am not good enough as a father, or not good enough as a business owner, or whatever. These statements of who you are have begun to define you and have begun to limit you and created a sense of lack and contraction. And so it really is one of the most essential things that we can do to move ourselves towards what it is that we want in our life, to release judgments, because judgments freeze in place beliefs that we've held true about ourselves. But because of the nature of judgment, it activates the part of our mind that's always looking to justify itself. So the nature of a judgment means that we'll declare something as true, and then we'll begin to look for evidence to back it up. So you may say, okay, I'm so clumsy, and then you go out throughout the day and then something happens, and it might not be necessarily anything special, but if something happens that remotely resembles clumsiness, you then say, I am clumsy, I knew it, there it is, it happened again. And over time, you do it so often that other people then begin to notice, because they reflect back to you what you believe to be true about yourself, and they start claiming that you're clumsy, and then all of a sudden you've been defined as a clumsy person. And this can happen in any area. Now, the beautiful thing about judgments is that we can also define ourselves as something positive. So you can say, I am so organized. I'm just such an organized person. And then you do something and you see it and you're like, look, I'm just so organized. And you do something else and I'm so organized. And every time you go home, you hang your house keys up and you look at that and you're like, yeah, there's more proof that I'm organized. And then people start to notice and then they start to tell you, oh, aren't you really organized? And then it starts to define you, okay? Now, this is a taster of what's to come, because with judging ourselves, we always have the power to be able to choose what we've judged ourselves as. Now, for the most part, we have judged ourselves to be something that has defined us when we were in our teenage years or in primary school, or those early years, sort of early teen years, 10s, 7s, 3, whatever. And those old judgments that we've cast about who we think we are then are still defining us now. And it's very difficult to operate in the world of adults when we're defining ourselves from a perspective of a child. And so letting go of judgment is an opportunity for us to also grow ourselves up and step into a more mature, well-rounded place that gives us the capacity to operate in a world that really does need adults more than anything else. There's a lot of immature adults out there in the world that are claiming to be, responsible for themselves and whatnot, but what you'll notice is that there's just a lot of scared children in adult suits walking around. And I say this with a smile on my face because I was certainly one of them for a long time. So here's the deal. This is how we do it. If you can pick a situation that's happened recently that has triggered you to some degree. Something recent is better than something that happened a while back. And once you've captured what that is, I want you to sit and I want you to write out what happened briefly. Okay? And you're gonna have to pause the video a couple of times and come back to this. So write out what happened briefly, and then the second thing I want you to do is I want you to be really honest, brutally honest, saying everything that you really want to say in terms of the judgments that you have and the opinions that you have and the real way that you felt about the situation. So you may say, someone cut me up in traffic and I had to brake hard and it made me late for work. Okay, so that's what happened. But what the next part is going to say is, how did you feel about that at the time? And you might say, well, that absolute piece of shit cut me up and I wanted to go out and punch his head in. Okay, a little bit more strong, but it's closer to the truth. How did you feel? How did you feel? So be really honest, and then we might say, and he made me late for work, and then I got told up by my boss, and my boss is this, and my boss is that, and there might be loads of stuff in there, right? But let's just get it all out, because most of the time we don't give ourselves a chance to actually really voice the things that we want to say, especially when it's about people that we care about and we love. And that's really the people that trigger us the most, right? So get really honest and say everything that you wanted to say about how you felt. Okay. Now, once you've done that, hit pause now and get to work on that. Once you've done that, hit play, and then we're going to go into the next part, which is part 3. Okay, so thank you for completing the first 2 parts. Now, the next bit, which is really important, is I want you to look at what you've written and begin to identify any of the judgments that are inside of what you've written. So you'll be able to find them quite easily. It's like, he should have done this, or he should have said this, and he is this, or she is this, or I am this, or I am that, and I am so stupid, or whatever. Like, these kinds of statements are what we want. So if you've got a highlighter pen or a pencil to underline this and find them all inside of the honest description that you've just wrote. And once you've got them all, I want you to move those onto a new piece of paper so that you can see them in isolation as statements. I am this, or he is this, or she should have done this, and I should have done this. and have a list of however many, might be between 4 and 10, or there might be less. Once you have that list, now we're going to begin the process of self-forgiveness. Okay, so this is how it's going to go. As you begin to look through the list and you begin to notice the different judgments that you've cast, you'll see how those judgments carry a certain energy when you say them, and it's quite heavy, and you feel a bit tight or constricted or annoyed. It might even flare you up again. And so what needs to happen is that in order for us to be able to neutralize these judgments and to let go of them, we need to forgive ourselves for having them in the first place. And this is very different to forgiving the person or the thing or the event or whatever. We're not going to do that. We're going to forgive ourselves for having judged that thing in the first place. Now, this is really important, because most of the time when we think about judgment and forgiveness, we think, oh, I've got to forgive that person. Well, no, there's a problem with this, because what we begin to realize is that what we've judged that person as does not define that person. It's not actually the truth. It's just our judgment about them. And so if someone cuts you up and it might be dangerous, that doesn't mean that they're a blank expletive. It just means that they cut you up and they made you late. It doesn't even mean that. In truth, it's a completely neutral event that we have decided is more than that. It's a completely neutral event that when seen objectively is just a series of happenings that occurred that don't mean anything at all. But us as humans, we have this amazing capacity to judge, and because we have that, we do that often. And we mostly judge ourselves, but what we usually do then is we project our judgments about ourselves onto other people, because the things that we dislike about ourselves, we find fault in other people. We see them in other people. So the things we dislike the most about ourselves, we find our eyes are tuned to that, and we spot that in other people very quickly. Okay, and so this is why the self-forgiveness process is two parts. We forgive ourselves for judging another person. So we forgive ourselves for having judged another person in the first place, and then we also get to forgive ourselves for judging ourselves, because whatever we judge another as, we've also judged ourselves as that too. And it's a very, very powerful realization when we see this, and I will help you through this process. So once you have your first sentence, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to take a nice slow deep breath. Again, we're going to be connecting to a loving place. So and allow ourselves to take 5 deep breaths, and as you do, bring to mind a person or an animal or a being that just radiates pure love, unconditional love for you. So it might be a guru or an animal or a baby or something like this that just is pure unconditional love. And as you breathe in the word love and breathe out the word peace. So we're going to breathe in and think of the word love, imagining that person's face, looking into their eyes. Breathe out peace. And now we're going to place our right hand over our heart. Okay, I'm going to place it over our heart, and we're going to keep our eyes closed, and we're going to breathe in love and breathe out peace, and imagine that beautiful being's face as we begin to associate ourselves with the feeling of love. And as you begin to melt back into that heart space and you feel yourself connected to that place, open your eyes and look at the first sentence. Now, I would like you to repeat this sentence stem after me. I forgive myself for judging myself as. So repeat that. I forgive myself for judging myself as. Okay. Now, this is important because when we say as, what we're doing is we're saying, I've judged this thing as something. It isn't actually that. It isn't actually what I've judged it. It is just that I've judged it as that. So now the sentence stem is going to get attached to the judgment. Okay? So let's just say our judgment is, I'm always late and I'm never able to do things properly. So you're late for work or whatever. So that's a judgment. Okay? So let's go with that. I forgive myself for judging myself as I'm always late and I never do things properly. Okay? Just breathe into that and allow yourself to connect, and then say the sentence again. I forgive myself for judging myself as, and repeat your sentence. That's right. Now repeat it again. And I want you to keep repeating this until you feel a sense of expansion begin to occur as the judgment is loosened through the process of forgiveness. Remember, connecting to the heart space. If you want to touch the heart, you can. Bring into mind that loving being, bringing the energy of love to the act of forgiveness that empowers it in the first place. I forgive myself for judging myself as, or I forgive myself for judging somebody else as, and go through this process again. So I forgive myself for judging Steve or the driver of the car as, repeat the sentence. As you continue to go through this process of I forgive myself for judging another or myself as, keep going way past what you think is necessary. So you've said it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. I'm gonna suggest that you go to 10 times, 15 times, 20 times. Forgive myself for judging myself. I forgive myself for judging another person as, and keep going with this until you really feel a sense of expansion. And you will tangibly notice the difference once the act of forgiveness has really took hold, once you've really released yourself from the judgment that you've cast. And now the next part, if it was about someone else, I know that I initially said myself, but if it wasn't about yourself, the first judgment that you had, it was about someone else, you want to then take the same judgment and replace the name of the person with myself, and forgive yourself for judging yourself as that thing. Because I'm going to explain briefly now that how judgment works is that we are always only ever really judging ourselves. We notice the qualities in ourselves that we dislike, and most of us reject those qualities. We push them down, we suppress them, we don't want other people to know that they're there. And this is this shadow aspect of our life, the shadow aspect of our nature, the parts of us that we are ashamed of, the parts of us that we don't like very much. And because we reject them and push them down, we project them out onto other people because they don't want to be inside of us. They want to move through and they want to be released. And we've judged ourselves for our entire life for many different things, and we've adopted judgments from other people and we've made them our own and loads of different things. So we're full of this stuff. So this process of self-forgiveness is really an ongoing process, because you're going to have many different instances where you're going to be triggered again and again and again. So the next process is exactly the same, but replacing the other person with myself. And if the first judgment that you have was about yourself and the second one is about someone else, then you're going to have to do it anyway. So you want to bring your hand to your heart again, close your eyes, connect to the loving center. And once you've changed the sentence stem, change the sentence for your name, for yourself, instead of the other person, it's I forgive myself for judging myself as. And as you begin to forgive yourself for judging yourself as those things, notice the times in your life when you've actually judged yourself as that. Notice the times when you've acted in a similar way. Notice the times when you've actually behaved exactly in the same way as the person that you judged in the first place. And as you begin to notice this, you begin to become more humble and more accepting and more forgiving of the other person too, as well as of yourself. And so go through the process again. I forgive myself for judging myself as, and the sentence. And keep saying this again and again until you get that real sense of expansion. Now, once you've been able to do both, the next part of the process is replacing the original judgment with something else, with something that is true. Because the original judgment was not the truth. It was something that you declared as true, but actually wasn't true. So bring back the sentence, and now I want you to look at it, and I want you to tell me from this loving place that you're in right now, like what was the truth about this situation? What really happened? From this more loving, forgiving place, if you've gone through all of the judgments, or even just one of them, like what really happened around this particular judgment, or if you've gone through every single judgment, what really happened about this incident? And I actually recommend you just go through all of the judgments and revisit the incident and consider what really happened. And you might notice that what happened was very different now from this new perspective. You've got a more forgiving perspective, and you may notice that, oh, actually, you know, I was in a rush there, and I was not maybe driving as safely as I could have done, and maybe the driver in front of me was also in a rush, and they were feeling anxious and afraid and worried about getting somewhere too, and I know how that feels, and it's really difficult to concentrate when you feel that way. So maybe that's why they had a crash, and they're probably feeling terrible now, and all this compassion will start to come out of you, and you'll rewrite the story. Okay, so I suggest you rewrite what happened from this new perspective. And once you've done that, press pause now, do that, and then come back. So I'm assuming that you've been able to revisit this, and I know it takes a little bit of time, but the power of this is that when we tell ourselves stories, they get really ingrained. And this is not a single story that's happened once. This is something that's happened a million times, that you've been judging a million different ways in similar situations. And so by doing it with the work with this one story, you're actually releasing all of the future incidents that you're going to potentially have if you didn't do it, because life will just keep showing you again and again all of the judgments that you've got that have got you trapped and limited until you finally let go of them. And this is the process of letting go. So now you've been able to do that, I want you to come back to the statement that you wrote about yourself or the other person, mostly about yourself. And the one about yourself is the one that we're really going to tackle next, because this is the most potent and powerful one. So the judgment that you had about the other person was actually a judgment you had about yourself. You were able to remember an instant where that happened and how that was true, and now you've forgiven yourself and you've rewritten the story. The next step is look at that statement and close your eyes and tell me, what is the truth? What's the truth? Because I know maybe you thought that you were lazy and you're never good for doing anything. That was my one, okay? Well, the truth is that I'm actually highly competent and I care an awful lot about myself and others. That's a more powerful truth, right? Now, you might want to go through this a couple of times till you get something even more powerful. So the original statement is that I'm lazy. Well, the truth is that I am actually committed to doing things right. And that doesn't mean doing things fast. So I'm committed to doing things right. I'm not lazy, I'm committed to doing things right. Can you feel the energy of that? So I am committed to doing things right. I am committed to going slow rather than fast if that's the right thing to do, or whatever it makes sense for you. Pick your judgment and find a new replacement for it. So another one might be I am weak. So you would say I am strong, or I am strength. I am strength, and I am resilient, or whatever is a more powerful statement of truth. And find yourself a good, strong adjective to describe it as well. That can be really nice. So one that came up for me when I was doing this was that feeling anxious means that I'm weak. So I judge myself as weak because I felt anxious. Now, what I begun to realize was actually that feeling anxious is very powerful when I allow myself to feel anxious and don't judge it, because then I get a chance to realize what fear was underneath the anxiety, and I can then find a way to overcome that fear or release that fear. So anxiety is a way of me becoming more strong, because it gives me the key, the information that I need in order to release fear and become more whole and more strong. So I changed that to anxiety is a pathway to strength. And I had a couple of other different variations of that. I am megalithic strength. My strength is built on my ability to feel my anxiety without judgment. That's another variation you can do. Many different variations you can do on this. Always happy to help. So if you're watching this, you should have my email address. Hit me up if you want some suggestions around how you can transform the original statements, original judgment into something more powerful. Let's just start with this. Let's just say you've got one now and you found a new one, a new judgment for yourself. We're going to go back to the original sentence stem, and then we're going to add a couple of additional things to it, okay? So now you're going to be finding affirmation or declaration statements of truth about yourself that will let go of the original judgment, bring forgiveness in, and recreate yourself as something new. So we're moving past judgment now into self-creation, into a place of, actually, I am something way more powerful than what I judge myself to be. So the act of forgiveness releases the belief that we've got about ourselves, and now we've got a way to install a new belief that I am something else. Okay? So we'll go back to the original sentence then with the original judgment, and we'll say, I forgive myself for judging myself as, and then fill in the blank. The truth is, and then fill in the blank with the new statement of truth. Okay? So I'll show you how this worked for me when I done it about anxiety. I forgive myself for judging myself as feeling anxious means I'm weak. The truth is, anxiety is a pathway to strength. Or my strength is my capacity to feel anxious and allow it. Whatever that might be for you. So we'll go through it again. I forgive myself for judging myself as the original judgment. The truth is, and then insert the new judgment, the new statement of truth. Now, I suggest you do this again for about 5 to 10 times with each one, really anchoring it in, feeling the body accept the new truth. And now, once you've finished with this, you have a statement, an I am statement, a very powerful, potent I am statement that is aligned directly with the old judgment that you used to hold true about yourself, which means that every single time you say it, you're releasing the judgment and reaffirming your new identity. And this is something that you can do as a practice. This is something that I highly recommend that you begin to collect these statements, begin to undo all of the judgments that you've ever had about yourself and redesign who you are, your identity, your self-identity through these I am statements that you've found by undoing your judgments. So go through the process with all of the judgments, complete on that, find your new I am statements, and then once you've done that, pick the most powerful I am statements that are left. If you've got a lot, then just find the ones that mean the most to you and put them to one side in your diary or your journal, and come back, and we can come back to them later, and I'll create a new video around how you can start using those affirmation statements in the morning to recreate who you are. So that's it. You've done it. Congratulations. You've gone through the process of self-forgiveness, and this is an ongoing thing, okay? You're going to be having a lot of experience in noticing the judgments that you hold about people as you go through the day now. You'll be judging other people and judging yourself a lot, trust me. So use the opportunity when you notice them to write them down, and then at the end of the evening or once a week, collect all of the judgments that you've got about yourself, and then begin to go through this process. And if you've already done that, if you've already collected all the judgments that you've got about yourself, then the process is exactly the same. Just keep going through it and continue to do this. Continue to do this. Make this a practice that never stops, because trust me, your judgments will never ever stop. You have got so good at it that it is ingrained into the very fabric of your psyche. So now we get an opportunity to step up as adults and accept that, okay, we judge a lot, which means that we have to now accept our responsibility to forgive just as much, so that we can undo all of those judgments. So I hope this has been helpful. I really have enjoyed spending some time with you today, whoever you are, wherever you are in the world watching this. Sending so much love and goodness. And as I said, if you've got any questions, need any additional support, please feel free to email me and I will help you as best as I can. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye for now.